Welcome to Boring is Bad for Business, a marketing and branding podcast for service-based businesses. I'm your host, SOOJEE Ford, founder and brand strategist at The Good Studio. We're a Sunshine Coast brand studio who is obsessed with helping service-based businesses transform their business or organization into a leading brand. Before we dive in, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we are recording this podcast today, the Gubbi Gubbi people and the Jinnaburra people. I'd also like to acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to today's episode. Today, I am going to be taking you through an updated version of our InsideOut brand framework. If you are new around here and it's the first time that you are listening or you are watching, we first spoke about our InsideOut brand method in our second ever episode. That was over 2 years ago now, and in that time, I have worked with a lot of clients and applied it to their businesses. So naturally, things have evolved, and I'm so excited to take you through what those evolutions are. And more than ever, I think that this method is more robust, and I can't wait to take you through it. Around the time that we first introduced the InsideOut method on this podcast, we had been using it in the studio for at least 18 months. But what had inspired its creation had happened for years before that. Really, in my entire career, from when I started off as a junior designer right the way through to being a brand strategist, I had seen the word brand misused and misplaced, and even its importance. Now, this was happening with solo business owners who would come and ask for help with their marketing or their logo or their brand, right through to senior marketing managers. And this has actually nothing to do with the expertise of those people that were sort of misusing the words. It has everything to do with the fact that when you are marketing a business, there is so much to do that it is really easy to overlook the foundational elements that really make you successful in favor of the more urgent and pressing things. And this is what prompted us to create the InsideOut method. So if you have ever been confused about the word brand, about what brand strategy actually means, about if your brand needs some help or where you should work on it in your marketing piece, then this is the episode for you. My goal is to simplify the whole thing, and that's really what the InsideOut method was meant to do, and also give you some insights about where you can tweak and adjust your marketing to make sure that you are standing out in the marketplace. I am hearing and also personally experiencing that this season of business is particularly tough. I'm hearing it amongst colleagues, I'm hearing it amongst clients. So we all know things are costing a hell of a lot more. They are getting smaller in size. But I think overall as service-based businesses, what we are noticing is that clients of ours are a lot less optimistic, and they're taking a lot more convincing and a lot more trust to actually make that decision to take the service or buy your service. For us, and I'll talk personally, at The Good Studio, this has definitely been one of our quieter years. If I think back to 2 years ago when we were podcasting, I was about to go on maternity leave and having a major freak out about how we were going to get everything done. Like, we weren't at the scale that we could hire someone to replace my role, but we had a lot of leads coming in. Admittedly, yes, we were doing the podcast, and I think that really did help us because we were very present and there was a lot of top of funnel information and education and content going out there. But I really did notice the difference in the optimism of the people who were inquiring. Right now, I think you add in the economic climate plus how easy it is for businesses to sort of pop up and how easy it is to market. Now more than ever, it is feeling tough for businesses. Now, if you're in this situation, I can totally empathize that working on your brand does not feel like a priority. And let me tell you, and I hope by the end of this episode that you do understand that working on your brand and working on what makes you different and making that as best as you can is really a key, and it's what you need to put in your marketing plan to stand out and to succeed in even a tough climate. Now, I've been quite lucky, and in this last couple of years, our overheads have shrunk significantly, and that means that we are getting by with the right amount of work, and it's okay. But what I do love about this season, and even though it is slower, it is giving me so much space and time to work on the things that I love and I'm most passionate about, and that is brand and marketing. That all sounds amazing, but before we begin, I do want to put a big disclaimer in here. This method is not a silver bullet for your business. It is not the magic wand that if you do it, your business is going to change dramatically. Brand building still takes a lot of time, but what this method does do is it gives you a way of working things out in a really chronological order. And it also helps you get alignment between the layers, which are things that are really essential for marketing and also for brand building. So in the original episode, when I first introduced the idea of the InsideOut method, I was using this analogy of an onion, and I still think that that applies, even though it is really, really daggy. There are 4 layers in this onion. They are, from the inside out, business, brand, identity, and also website. Now, one of the biggest updates in this inside out method is that I've introduced another layer, and that is marketing. And it doesn't actually sit on the outside of the website. It sits in between when you go business, brand, identity, marketing, and then your website. And I'll talk to why that is a little bit later. The theory is with the inside out method, and I know this from practicing with clients, is that the best and most effective brands or leading brands, they approach things with their marketing from the inside out. So that is, they go through the business strategy first, they work on their brand strategy, they design a brand identity that communicates these 2 layers internally, they design their marketing, which again builds on the internal layers, and then they build out their website and they keep working out. But the trap that almost all people fall into, and this is not throwing shade at people who do this, is that they start talking about the most tangible things first, and they sit on the outside layer. So that's asking questions about a logo or a website. To give you an example of what I mean, almost all startups who are in the startup phase, they go through this idea of like, I've got the concept, fantastic. Now we need to go and get a logo designed and a website created. They're not wrong, or if you are in this situation, you are not wrong in thinking that you need a logo and a website. Of course you do. But the problem lies that if you go and approach a designer and ask for those things without going through the internal layers, you then rely on the designer, creative agency, studio to really build that strategy for you. And in my early days as a designer, when you start off, as a junior designer, I would see a lot of these opportunities come up. So working on a website, working on a logo, and being quite young, and that's what you sort of learn when you're in design college, to talk about, well, what do you want to see in this logo? Why should we have it? You ask the client what they want. And a lot of that time, whether it's the business owner or the designer, the whole brief in that process is asking the business owner what they want. And hopefully in most cases, the business owner is talking from their client's perspective, but often they're not. Because it's really easy for a business owner to get caught up in things and start putting personal preference in the middle of it. Now, look, as I progressed through my career, I started to ask better questions, and I could put into a couple of emails or a meeting, hey, let's dig a little bit deeper on your company, your why, how you're different in the market. But still really that conversation and that discovery on building the brand was very one way. It was ask a question, information is delivered back from the client. There's no more discovery or digging deeper. And I'm not alone in approaching things this way. I think a lot of the design industry does work this way. But what we have seen and why we really started this at the Good Studio is that working this way only causes the questions that really should be asked at the beginning to come up once the design is seen. And what this leads to is a hell of a lot of frustration from both the creative side, because they're like, why didn't you tell me this information earlier? But also the client. Again, why didn't you know this information earlier? Or worse, this is costing me a lot of time and money. So I've already spoken about what one of the problems are with this style of working and this way of working. That is that the business owner who is delivering the brief or answering the questions, they are not the final customer. So it's really hard for them to be objective. But the second thing, it's kind of expanding on that, is that when you work in your business, you are so close to everything. And as a CEO or even a marketing manager, you see and you are exposed to the day-to-day stresses. So to think creatively, think strategically, your mind doesn't have a lot of space. And really that's where the inside out method comes in and is at its strength. It gives everybody in the business the opportunity to take a step away from their day-to-day and be asked questions and have a discussion to find the best answer or the best path to win, which is known as a strategy. Now you know the whole reason that we started the Inside Out method and why it works and how it can work for a business. We are going to go through the 5 layers of the Inside Out method. In writing this episode and researching, there's been a thought that's been ticking along in the back of my mind. There should actually be a 6th layer. I'm not going to tell you what it is until the end, but I think it's something to mull on. We won't be adding it officially to the Inside Out method, but really have a think through this episode and then we'll come back to it at the end. So the first layer of the Inside Out method is business. Now, every good brand and every good effective marketing strategy, I should say, starts with a good business model. So we primarily work with service-based businesses who are at the stage where they need to rebrand, and there are a plethora of reasons for that. So the organization has changed. We often see a lot of businesses who have been around for sort of that 20-year mark, and really what they're doing in their marketing doesn't reflect the service that they are delivering, so there's a bit of a mismatch. But whatever it is, you need to have a proven business model or at least a business plan. Now, we don't do the business planning stage at the Good Studio. We kind of expect that clients bring that to us. If you are starting out and you don't have that, one of the best resources I can say is just go to the Australian Business Government website, download their business template and start plugging in things there. There are, of course, lots of choices about people to work with, but really it comes back to the numbers. You need to be talking about what is the service that you sell? How do you actually monetize that? Do you have people in place in your team that can leverage that? Do you have systems and processes? What's the plan for growth? What does growth look like in the next 12 months? What does it look like in 5 years? What does it look in the long term in the 10-year picture? We work really closely with clients. We ask them to deliver that information to us. We ask them questions. By the end of it, we are almost sort of experts and we could be onboarded to work in their team. And I have done this for all sorts of businesses, from orthotics and podiatrists to pet food to energy balls, Pilates. There is a huge mix. And really, it's our job to get inside the inner workings of the business and understand how it works before we start doing anything that comes to brand and all the fun stuff. So that's the business. I'll just reiterate again, before you do any brand building, before you do any marketing, make sure your business plan is solid, make sure you understand it. The next layer in the Inside Out method is the brand. So personally, I like to divide up in this model that brand is really, all about creating the emotional connection with your clients. This is very different. This is very different to the brand identity, which is the visual aspect. So let's talk about what it means and how do you actually create an emotional connection with customers. So we kick off the brand building phase with brand workshops, and it can be sometimes one workshop if the business is smaller, but often it will be 2 or 3 workshops. And if it's a solo founder, we'll just have ourselves in the room and the founder. But if we have a team, and this works really well with teams, it'll be the Good Studio, myself usually, plus the entire team who works on the business. So I have run workshops where we have the finance team, the marketing team, the CEO, all in the same room, all talking about brand. And one of my favorite memories of doing this was a long time ago. It was working with Big Dog Pet Foods. We had those functions or those people and departments in the room, and we were trying to choose their brand archetype. So if you don't know what brand archetypes are, in 5 seconds or less, they are universal personality types that sort of exist in our society. And what brands can do is tie their personality to one of those to have, a shortcut to connecting with people. We had people from each department in the room trying to choose their brand's archetype. Now, not surprisingly, they did end up with the nurturer. However, there was a lot of process. There was to and froing. We had some people choosing the hero. We had some people choosing the sage. But what was so memorable in my mind is the experience of each person sharing a story about why they believed in their brand archetype. And it was magic to watch. It was a true demonstration of what it means to build emotion into a brand, because they were telling stories that represented their customers and their pets. For us, and in the Inside Out method, that brand workshop is one part of brand building. The second part is research. So it's really important to validate what is found in that room, in that workshop. And I will just say, and I probably didn't touch on it earlier, the idea of the brand workshop versus a brief is that it is an opportunity to open up the discussion and the to and fro. So I will often pose a question and I'll get people to answer that. But it's not just taking that answer at surface level. It's about digging deeper and asking why, or getting the person to articulate it. And I also like to say, I'm listening to what a client says as an answer, but also how they deliver it, because sometimes there can be hidden meaning beneath those words, and that is the exact reason that briefs don't always work. Now, once we do those workshops, what we find, we need to validate. So this is where we then go through the process of doing research. So generally, we are working with small to mid-sized businesses. I think the technical definition of that is between 50 to 100 employees, but even smaller sometimes. So the research methods that we use are not that complex. And that's great, because if you are listening to this podcast, these are tactics or ideas or ways to gather customer research that you can do in your own business. So things that we use: customer surveys out to existing databases, surveys on social media. We can be doing interviews by phone. We can be doing broader online research into cultural trends, economic trends. Something that I also love, search data, and looking at how people are searching and what terms are they searching for in relation to your business, or a mix of any of these. And really what we do from that point is we combine the brand workshop and the findings that we found there with the research and some insights. And with these two parts, this is where we then go off and create the amazing, the exciting, the fun stuff, some of the brand strategy work that starts to bring the brand from a business concept into something that's really emotional and cemented and also differentiated in the market. So in our toolkit, and when we start talking about creative and brand and what we might create, this is things like your customer personas, your purpose, mission, vision, values, brand taglines, positioning and differentiation, and then also your brand value proposition. All essential things to know before you start doing any of that tactical marketing. So some of the questions that I might ask you, and you can pause this episode and write them down if you want, or come back to it at a later date, are: if our brand were a personality, or your brand was a person or a celebrity, who would it be? What would they sound like? Would they be excited? Would they be serious? Are they playful? Are they crass? What is your brand like as a person? Another question might be, what are the core values? If you're trying to make a tough business decision here, you've got option A, you've got option B. What are those things that you are coming back to at the end of the day to make that decision? What do you value most? Is it work-life balance? Is it doing the right thing by the community? Is it making money? Whatever it is, these start to form your values. And it's really about spending time here. It's not about just sort of going, what's the surface level? It's about digging deeper and seeing where else do these values actually show up in our business? And if they don't, how do we bring them to life in our business? And finally, one of my favorite, what's the story of the brand? How did the business come to be? From the perspective of what was the problem you were initially setting out to solve? What was the origin story? What was the experience that you had as a founder, or what did the founder have that really spurred this innovation on in your category? We are now at the third layer of this little inside out onion thing, and that is identity. So brand identity, if you're not in the industry, is probably what you're calling a logo. We need our logo created. We need our colors, all of that sort of stuff. This is... Search data tells me that there's a lot of searches for people saying logo design, Sunshine Coast. We know that we need a logo. We know that we need our brand designed. When we get into this phase, because we've got all the information from the brand, the business strategy, in terms of what we need to be achieving in the market, who our competitors are, like what's the revenue, what are we selling, etc. We've also got our brand, and we really understand how we're going to build emotion within this and the why, the story. Building the identity is where it all becomes quite fun. It's not just a logo though. I just need to reiterate really strongly, when you are a business and you're about to invest in brand building and you're about to invest in marketing, there are so many applications and touch points that you are showing up on. You need to have in your brand identity, yes, a logo, color palette, fonts, templates, and something that has kind of shot up in popularity, and I am 100% on board with, is Canva. We don't build our logos in Canva, of course not. But I am so aware that our clients are using Canva on the daily. So having your templates to create your own marketing materials within Canva that look consistent, look professional, and also give businesses their own ability to do their own marketing is essential. So your brand identity is essentially, it's like the clothes your business wears. Another thing that is often overlooked, especially when it comes to service-based marketing, is photography and video of a professional level. If you remember back to an earlier episode where I spoke about the challenges that we face, that we are an intangible thing, it makes so much sense as to why investing in high-quality photography and visuals and audio makes so much sense, because the more touch points that you can have with your customers that show you that you are a real thing that helps them, the better and the more trust you can build. So what questions can you ask yourself, ask your team, if you're wondering if your brand identity is really living up to all those expectations and doing everything it can for your business? I like to say, is your logo simple and memorable? Really, a logo needs to work on a billboard as much as it can on a stamp. Remember those things? You put them on an envelope. That's as small, and probably even smaller if you have something that maybe it's on an accessory, etc. It needs to be really simple, but it also needs to be differentiated and not just the same. Are you using your colors correctly? Do you even have enough colors in your color palette? Now, I do see some brands that just have too many to manage, but sometimes things can look a little bit flat if you only have the two. Sometimes you need a little bit of more dynamic, sort of set contrast within a color palette. And finally, I've already harped on this before, photography, visuals. Humanize your brand as a service-based business. Show the experience, show the people behind your brand. This is a part of your brand's identity. So we now come to one of the major updates in the Inside Out method from when I first spoke about it and we were doing it in our early days. And that is we come to the idea of marketing. So just to recap, we've gone through the business level, the brand identity, or shorthand to identity level. We're now at marketing. So marketing, it's all about how do we get our brand out there to new audiences all the time, but also on the flip side, the people who already know about us, how do we keep them engaged? How do we keep nurturing those people who said they're interested in what we sell in our service? And how do we start to bring them closer to the line of saying, yes, I trust you. Let's give this a go. I need what you are doing. You can help me in whatever way it is. The good thing about following the Inside Out method is that we have broken the back of a marketing strategy. If you are familiar with marketing, you will know that pretty much everything that you need to build a marketing strategy has been done in those internal layers. Because we're not reinventing the wheel, we focus on a few things. Number one, channel strategy. So going back to the customer personas that we talk about, where are those customers hanging out? Where are they first going to find out information about your service-based business? It could be a mix, and I highly recommend it is a mix of channels. So are they looking on social media? Do you need to have a good organic strategy as well as a paid strategy? Do you need to do some PR? Can you build up your audience and build up people who know about you or find out about you through partnerships? There is a range of things that you can do, but it always comes back to budget. So you need to have a really clear idea of how much you can invest in your marketing. And then we prioritize, okay, based on your budget and what you can afford to do at this stage, for the next 6 to 12 months, let's focus on these specific channels. Once the channels are in place, it's really about content. What are we going to say on your email marketing? What are we going to say on your social media? What do you need to put in your ads to be effective? And this is all about going back to the buyer journey and going, we know that we need to take people from not knowing about your service-based business to all the way through to liking and trusting you. And they go through a whole lot of questioning and things quite subconsciously. They need to see social proof. They need to see evidence. They need to see that you understand them, and then sort of warm them up until the point that they are ready to be a customer. After content strategy, it goes to campaign planning. Are you a business that has peaks and troughs in their marketing, or are you somebody who has just an always on strategy? If you fall into the one with the peaks and troughs and maybe a bit of always on, this is what we would call your campaign. And this is about building out those memorable moments in time that really give people a reason to think about you, hear about you. Whatever you are doing, you still need to come back to your brand's value proposition. You need to come back to your why you matter, how you're different, and be continually adding value to your customer. And finally, last but not least important, measurement and performance. How are we going to measure if this has been effective for you? What's the number of leads that we're wanting to get out of this? What's the number of conversions on the sales side that you want to get out of this? And then it's just about iterating and moving forward. So questions that you might want to ask at this stage if you are looking at marketing. Where is your ideal client? And try to keep it quite specific if you are just sort of starting out or trying to optimize your marketing. Think about one specific type of person that you deliver a service to. Figure out where they're hanging out, how they make their decisions, and tweak and optimize from there. Second is marketing has to have an element of being memorable. So how can you bring creativity to your value proposition and ideas so that you do stand out to your customers? And then how can you spread that across your channels and the marketing that you are doing? And then this one probably should have been at the start, but what can you actually afford? What is your marketing budget? I can't say this enough that this needs to be set from the outset, that acquiring clients, acquiring leads, it costs you time or money. If you don't have the time, it's going to cost you money. Set it as a percentage of your ideal revenue and go from there. With our new model of the Inside Out, we are now at our 5th layer. We've gone through those internal layers. We are at the website layer. The website is actually my favorite part of the brand building process because it's where everything comes to life. If you think about it, really your website has a lot of text, a lot of messaging, it has visuals. It is the home for all of your marketing traffic, where they land and where you want to start consider, helping them out to make that purchase and nurturing them. It's where you see a lot of your hard work end up. What do you include on your website? Well, again, with the InsideOut method, we have drawn out a lot of those answers already by the time we get to the website process or the website phase of a project. It's a given. Your services need a page each for them, but what else should you have on your website? Well, I'll give you an example of, we have got our services pages on the Good Studio. So we've got a page for strategic branding. We've also got a page for websites because we offer those two services. But what you might not know is that we have a page for logo design Sunshine Coast, because that's a really highly searched term. It's not exactly what it's not the only thing that we do at the Good Studio. However, it's related and it's part of our SEO strategy. So then you can see that where you've got things from your marketing strategy starts to guide what you should be putting on your website. We also have a place for our podcast that you're listening to, living on the website, because again, that's part of our marketing strategy. It needs to live on the website. And you can see that all parts of the Inside Out method start to reveal what we worked out in the layer before, what the next layer should look like. One of the biggest pitfalls that I see on a website is the business talking about themselves instead of talking about the client or the user who is going to land on this website. Let me give you an example. Say you're a podcast studio and you say, we're a podcasting studio. You're only talking about yourself. Instead, what would be more effective is create content that connects. The next tip, and this is a big one, it's called friction if you're a website developer, e-commerce, etc. But literally, how easy is it for your clients or users to find the information that they need? So if they can get to it in 2 clicks, absolute goals. Try not to bury things in too many links. There are, of course, SEO strategies that you need to link in between pages, but for the key information that your clients need to find to decide if they want to work with you, don't bury it, make it really easy for them. And finally, conversions. So as a service-based business, our conversions are, of course, an inquiry, but I like to set up websites where you have multiple conversions. So, of course, having something like a lead magnet or access where there needs to be that exchange of an email. So these people aren't necessarily ready to inquire about working with you, but they are happy to opt in so that you can continue the conversation via email. Definitely do this. But of course, you have got other digital marketing activities like capturing the pixel data, which I don't know how long that is going to last for. We can talk about this later in the season. But you have a magnitude of options, and it should also be about driven around how do we actually take this website user, someone who's taken their time to go to our website, and make sure we create a relationship with them. That is most of this episode. We've gone through the 5 layers of the new and updated Inside Out method. Just to refresh you, you need to work for efficient branding and effective marketing that actually gets you the customers you want. Work from the business level on the inside. Work through your brand from that. So create an emotional story around your brand, something that's differentiated, that stands out, that also connects to your customers. You need to work on your brand identity system as a whole. And again, the more polished that this looks and the more professional that this looks, you are just building trust and credibility with your ideal types of clients. Then finally you need to go, okay, let's look at marketing. How are we going to share what we do, the amazing things that we do with our audience? And then finally, what sort of net do we need to create or to capture that traffic? And that is your website. The questions that I'm asking you in this episode, if you're the type of person who will actually go back and listen to them and answer them for your own business, I recommend doing that. They are questions that I would ask to a client in our brand workshop or over the process of working together. I've also put those questions plus some others in a freebie that I have on our website called the Ultimate Brand Strategy Checklist. There's even more questions from our brand strategy workshop process that we use with clients included in this. Highly recommend downloading that. I personally would be the person who does the checklist rather than re-listening to an episode, but that's just me. That 6th layer that I mentioned earlier on the website, the one that's inside all of this, it's mindset. Now, I've had this thought ticking over in the back of my mind, and it's happened not just as a thought, it's sort of emerged over the process of working with a lot of clients and taking them through this. And I have seen the impact of mindset affect people who have got multi-million-dollar businesses, like I'm talking probably big to a small business owner, really big. Mindset affects them right through to myself. I've been there. I think having the right, a healthy and nurtured and positive mindset and the self-belief that you can do this, that you can differentiate your brand is essential to do any of this. Because if you don't have that healthy mindset, you are not actually going to be able to build out your business, your marketing, your brand, or any of that to work for you. So the first time that I had heard about mindset was in my very early days of being a freelancer. I think it was about 7 years ago. I did a course with Prue Chapman of Owners Collective, and a wonderful person, KJ, ran a mindset module. I skipped it. I thought I was the most talented designer, probably wasn't. Didn't need to know that. What do we need to know about mindset? Previously, maybe in my career, I had done what I would say subconsciously worked on my mindset by sort of pep talking myself before a presentation, setting career goals, and maybe that's not it, or overall remaining relatively positive and trying to remain positive. But what I hadn't realized, and it's only now that I sort of through the process of doing, I have realized how important it is to really nurture my own mindset. When I have a healthy mindset and I believe in our why at the Good Studio, I believe in our purpose, then that's when I can really see through our marketing. But I can also do this with what's known as authenticity. Now, if you have a larger team and you're not just a solo founder, I think that mindset actually lives within the minds of your leadership team, but it also lives within the greater part of your organization as a culture. And I guess I've had this revelation that this is why I'm kind of obsessed with where brands meet business culture, because ultimately you need to either have a positive mindset or a healthy culture in your organization to build a leading brand. So there you have it. That's a scoop. There should probably be an internal layer on the InsideOut method, but it's not going to be added today. It's exclusively for you who are listening and watching this episode. So the final thing that I want to leave you with is really the difference between brand strategy and the InsideOut method. I think when we were early in days in this whole creating the InsideOut method, we used to use it interchangeably, that it was our brand strategy method. And that's actually through practice and applying and using this with clients, I've come to realize that it's actually very separate. So brand strategy is a part of the InsideOut method. But what the InsideOut method does is it shows you how to bring your brand strategy to life through all parts of your business. So from your business to your brand, the identity, marketing, websites, and it can even be extrapolated out to employee experience, customer experience, and so on. And so really that's the difference. Sort of while brand strategy is how you are going to position your brand, how you're different, how you're memorable, what the InsideOut method is, it shows you how to bring that into your business. The other thing that the InsideOut method does really well is it makes sure that all parts of your business are aligned. And so going back to the onion, it's like every single layer is touching it, and there's not really a clear line in the sand exactly where those things start and end in a business. Of course, in our process, we do make that a little bit more clearer. However, really, when it comes to business, all of those things tend to bleed into each other, and the most effective brands, they are all very connected. Now, brand building takes time. If this episode has resonated with you, resist the feeling that you have got so much to do on your to-do list. It doesn't happen overnight. What I suggest, especially with the InsideOut, and we've done it with ourselves, I've done it on the Good Studio, do a review of your brand and your business, and then just write a list and slowly check off those things. And you'll be surprised how quickly, or even just by working consistently, how much evolution you can achieve over a set amount of time. That's it for this episode of Boring is Bad for Business. If you are a service-based business and you want to work on your leading brand, we have actually got one spot left for the rest of the year. Now, I mentioned that it's a little bit quieter for us at the moment, but I am consciously trying to leave space in my calendar to continue to work on our branding and our marketing so that we can continue to reach the goals that we want. So if you want to do something for your business, definitely inquire now. Otherwise, have a look if this resonated with you at the Ultimate Brand Strategy Checklist. Otherwise, tune in next week when we talk to Nikki Farrell of Wildlings Forest School. She and her business partner, Vicky, have completely revolutionized the outdoor recreation industry here on the Sunshine Coast, within Australia and even internationally. It's an amazing interview and I can't wait to share it with you.